Hi everybody, so I'm going to try something completely unscripted. Okay, maybe not completely because I thought about it beforehand. But off the cuff here, something I've been thinking about doing for a while is how can I contribute something useful at the same time that I do something I need to do desperately, as you can see, is sort my magic cards. So I'm just going to talk about the stuff that's going on in the MTG YouTuber community, if you will, community at large. If you're watching this video, you probably already know about Christine Sprankle and how she has decided to leave the community over harassment and the, calling of Jeremy over at MTG headquarters, or used to be MTG headquarters, now Unsleeve Media, calling for him to be banned and all this. So I'm just going to talk about it, and I'm going to try to sort my magic cards. My friend was building a deck the other day, and she left his cards all over the place. I'm not sure which ones are hers and which ones are mine, but hopefully I can figure that out and talk at the same time. So let's see. I think there's a couple issues. There's a couple issues here, and people kind of are lumping them in certain directions. Because there's the side that thinks that this is all has to do with like political ideology, and Jeremy getting ousted by Wizards because his political ideologies don't line up with theirs. And then there's this issue of harassment, because Christine has said that she's leaving the community because she has been harassed. And there's, other people coming forward saying that Jeremy is toxic and harassing people and whatnot. So, it seems like most people who are commenting on YouTube, the most like, who are obviously the most level-headed people out there, are either addressing one of those two things and not them together. Overall, I guess the point I'm going to try to make with this video is just I hope that people can like just generally be level-headed and start to just recognize what you're doing, reality, I've watched both. I think I'm going to mostly address the professor and Jeremy in this video because they're the two that I'm most familiar with. I've watched a lot of their videos. The other people involved, whether you want to talk about Wedge and the Mana Source or Christine Sprankle, I'm not really familiar with their stuff, so I'm not going to address them too much. But hopefully the concepts I'm talking about will apply across the board. So, let's see. I contemplated writing out a paper with notes, but then I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to freaking go for it. So I thought it was, as far as Jeremy's concerned, I thought it was dangerous for Wizards to kind of try to moderate this issue themselves. And I don't know how much is really Wizards and how much is just people within the company itself. It's hard to say. Like, if Mark Rosewater decides to make a statement about the prevalence of women being harassed in Magic, like, is that a Mark Rosewater statement entirely? Is that do we consider that just him, or do we consider him speaking for the company? These are kind of important issues. So, I don't know exactly where he lies on that. I don't immediately consider him like speaking for the company, but I think that Wizards is discovering, and I think it's a good thing that they discover this, and hopefully other companies will discover that it's dangerous to start meddling in these issues, okay, whether they're political or whether they're ideological or whatever it is, to start jumping in and trying to moderate it themselves, when I feel like in essence it's actually more of a legal issue. Like, for instance, I think the real issue here in this thing that has not been in this conflict, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, that hasn't been talked about by a lot of people, is the real heart of the issue is, are people being harassed? So that's like that is a legal question, okay? So, and so I looked up the definition myself, and granted, there's no easy answers to these questions. So, I might as well keep this in the camera so you guys know what I'm doing while I'm talking. I mean, there's no easy answer, you know, but a good, reasonable legal definition of harassment that I found is that an individual is targeting somebody directly, and that it's repeated and they've been told to stop and they don't quit. Okay, so for instance, like Jeremy's one video targeting Christine, like, you know, calling her out and calling her a grifter and all that stuff. Like, is that targeted towards her? Yeah. He did not, however, encourage anybody to go after her. He didn't specifically say that. Not that that hasn't happened. That's another issue. That just makes this whole thing, there's a weirdness of that really makes me want to make this video. But, okay, so he targeted directly by calling her out. Like, you know, he didn't say, like, a cosplayer or something. He said specifically her and by name and called her, you know, some nasty things. So that's there. But it was one video, so you can't really say that in itself was harassment, okay? And, let's see. I'll try to pay attention. Just, not that anybody really cares what I'm doing, probably, but maybe, just so you don't do it. I'm just going through my friend's card right now and just, basically setting them aside and trying to figure out that my cards aren't mixed in there. So I don't think you could say that in itself was harassment, but then if he was asked to stop and, you know, he repeatedly, like, created multiple videos or multiple tweets or whatever, doesn't it just sound bizarre to talk about it? I feel like the internet has turned us all into, like, you know, just made the whole world turn into, like, grade school again. But, so it's like, on that sense, I'm like, you know, it's easy to jump on Jeremy's side and be like, oh, dude, you know, he should be able to just speak his mind, and he's, you know, people don't like him because he's able to, like, speak his mind or whatever, or he speaks his mind, and they just don't like the nasty things he has to say. But then, you know, I just watched the professor's video that he put out a little while ago, and he's got a lot of examples, you know, clips and tweets and whatnot, and I think when you look back at Jeremy's history, I'm not sure it really looks good when you talk about harassment, because it is, like, repeated things and you know, like, calling the professor a shill and all the, like, just nasty stuff he's made about them. I mean, I feel like there might be a case there, but, you know, that, whatever. So there may or may not be. My point in this video is to make people is to get you, the listener, to think about it and look at it in a realistic fashion. I'm not specifically trying to push any conclusion here. So there may very well be something there, okay? So I think that's the bigger issue here, as opposed to, like, whether there's this political, you know, whether he's getting ostracized because of his political views, which would be very strange, because if you really watch his videos and listen to him, he's not that out there. Like, he's not, you know, saying that white people are being oppressed, or that, you know, as far as I can tell from his videos, he supports equal rights for everybody. You know, he's not anti-trans, he's not anti-woman in any way, or thinks that any of that stuff. It's like he's, you know, he's unhappy with these agendas and all that, or SJWs as he put it, but that's, or as he puts it. But that leads me to another thing that I think is one of the worst parts about how these things develop over the internet, is that it's so quickly devolves into just name calling and rhetoric and all that, right? So, and I mean, he's certainly guilty of that. Like, I don't think you can deny that. It's like if somebody has a criticism, you know, and you start immediately calling them, like, oh, you're just an SAW, or you're a cuck, or a beta male, or whatever. That doesn't help. That's not getting us anywhere. You know, that's not going to figure this situation out. And, you know, the same goes to the other side, where, for instance, like, you know, you might say something and then somebody's like, oh, well, you're just misogynist, or your opinion doesn't matter because you have a penis and you're a white male. Like, those are also not things that are going to help us advance in any way. So if I could just get that point out there. Look, if you want to be listened to, and you want to actually make any difference in this world, name calling and rhetoric are not going to get you there. It's just going to incite anger, and unfortunately, it seems like that's what some people are after, okay? So, if you don't want to be like that, you got to look out for those people. Go, okay, this guy said something, this person, I should say, this person said something that's, made me angry, and you think about it, well, what's the source here, do I even care what they're saying, or are they just trying to incite me? Are they just being a troll, and how to deal with that? Because I just find it extremely disappointing, just as a human being, to look at the YouTube comments on both sides, and just look at how few of them actually have anything of value to say, other than just like, oh, you're a cuck, or you probably voted for Clinton, or whatever. Like, wow. I mean, that has nothing to do with what's going on. It just absolutely doesn't. Like, if somebody has a criticism of Jeremy or something, the fact that they voted for Clinton is blah, blah, blah. And the people shouldn't be calling out him for voting for Trump. Like, maybe you don't like Trump. Maybe you think that's dumb. But what does that have to do with this issue, right? It has nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Let's see. Let me collect my thoughts for a moment here. I actually sorted that pretty well. Cool. Well, I mean, yeah. Are they sorted? No. But they are out of the way. Okay, let's talk about some bigger issues here. So that's the small level issue here. So the real conflict right now between I think the real conflict between like Wedge and the Professor and Jeremy and Christine is like, was anyone harassed? Was there actual like legal harassment, and should there be a legal follow-up here is the main thing. And so as far as consequences to anybody, that's really what it comes down to. So that leads to this like culture, if you will. Oh, shit, I don't really like to get into buzzwords and stuff, but let's call it that. This culture of just immediate bannings and stuff that seems to be the thing. It's like, as soon as somebody says something that they're like, ban, ban, ban. Like, why aren't there other ways to handle it? Right. Because the point here is to try to get the hate stopped or cut down, but everyone's just jumps to the conclusion of like, well, this person should be banned. I don't want them in my community. I mean, I feel like there's this prevalence of somebody's like a neo-Nazi. Let's get terrible, okay? They're a neo-Nazi. They're a rapist. They're a murderer. And people are like, I don't want that person playing my Magic game. Well, Magic is a game. It's a separate thing than these things. And here's something I haven't really seen brought to the forefront. Maybe, just maybe, if there's a neo-Nazi across the table from you playing Magic with you, you can rehabilitate them. You can change their feelings. For instance, if somebody thinks that women aren't good at Magic or likes to talk crap about that, play a girl at Magic, right? I mean, I just recently, this friend I'm talking about with these cards that I'm sorting through, she's a girl. She just learned how to play Magic. She loves it. She's getting way into it. And thankfully, my store that I go to and that we've gone to together seems pretty cool and accepting. But she's gone other places and told me that, she walked into a store and a guy was like, oh, we should make this an all male league, like in earshot of her. Like, he doesn't even know her or anything, okay? Like, that's just rude. That's wrong. But I don't think the answer is to go, okay, well, let's kick that guy out. And we need to, like, start this massive, movement to, like, get these people out of Magic. Like, that's not the answer. It's rehabilitate, Rehabilitate. Like, you can't hate somebody that you know. Like, people, it's, hate is based on ignorance, right? If you think that all black people are X thing, blah, 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 well, all you got to do is meet some black people who don't fulfill your stereotypes, and suddenly your mind is blown, right? You're like, wow, okay, so maybe I was completely wrong. Or gay people or whatever. I've seen it happen many times where somebody hates a certain group. They think they hate a certain group, but they don't know them at all. And then all they got to do is meet some people that don't fit their stereotype, and suddenly they're changed, right? So, bam, that's it. Let's try to like rehabilitate these people, okay? Okay, so I can tie this all back around, right? So well, first off, I should probably decide what I'm gonna do here. Am I gonna sort these cards of hers, or am I just gonna put them aside in a stack? I think I'm gonna sort them. Okay, so my system for sorting that I'm at least using right now is I sort by basic land separate. Then I sort by set. Sort by set, then rarity. But you know what? That's not what you're here for. So I'm not gonna get. Well, maybe you are here for that. Who knows? I'm not gonna get into that right now. I haven't started putting the basics lands separately, but that's a whole nother issue for another time. So, let's see. Bring it back around. So I think this is what Wizards has dipped into, is the whole like for instance, let's talk about like their Reddit moderation. I don't spend much time on Reddit, but I just jumped on it today because people were posting links to it. So, because I was curious, all this drama blow up. I was like, I got to figure out what's going on. I got to get informed. There, number one. If that's not your first response, you might want to check yourself, right? If you watch a video and you start getting angry about something, your first goal, I hope you believe and agree with me, is to get informed. Because if there's one thing I've learned, you can't just trust one voice. You can't. Okay, you're not going to get all the information. Whether they even mean it or not, people can be easily biased and misremember things, misremember events. They can, they can say whatever they want, and they may truly believe that they are 100% correct, and they may also not have the information. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do, is get informed. So I just started watching videos. I watched videos from Jeremy. I watched videos from the professor. I watched videos from whoever else out there. Check out the Reddit. I want to get informed, okay? So what disappointed me about this Reddit, it's like Reddit Magic TCG or something, and the first thing I see is like this list from the moderator, and it says, okay, so we're unlocking this feed, but if you want to not be banned, you can't do these things, okay? And it just lists 5 or 6 things, and it says, if you do these things, you will get immediately banned. Then as I try to read the posts, half of them say deleted. So, in other words, I can't get any information, okay? Maybe those people were complete jerks and just way out. But as a person trying to get informed, the only thing I'm seeing is what they've decided that I can see, okay? What does that sound like to you, right? What does that sound like to you? Right? Think about it, okay? So, I get that the motivation is pure. They're trying to get rid of hate. But now I have no idea what the flip side is, or what the counter argument that people are saying. I can't get informed. So that's kind of brings around to my first point. Okay. So by the way, I'm thinking about entitling this video in this series, assuming it continues Ramble on. So yeah, I'm rambling. That's the first issue, is that now it's become this culture of banning. If you say something that's considered hateful or whatever, ban, 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 ban. So I can't get anything out of it. So why not, I assume that there has to be some sort of moderation. I get it. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into a mess where, people control. People can just troll and mess up a whole discussion, right? So, move that down to the bottom or something. Like, maybe the moderator can go, there's obviously going to be some bias in moderation. So maybe the moderator can go, okay, well, the comments that I think are most constructive, put near the top. The other ones go near the bottom. Is there going to be bias? Still, yes. But that information is still there. I mean, that's where censorship becomes an issue, is when somebody is deciding what information you can see, right? That is when it becomes like, goes from just protecting people to, like, fascism. I don't know, just things that, I don't know what the best word for it is, but where you are, like some 1984 stuff where you are being told what you can and can't see, okay? So that's also my issue with this whole, like, well, people who have bad attitudes or have hate speech or whatever should be banned from Magic. It's not the answer. It's not the answer. Should they be allowed to continue to do bad things? No. But it's also kind of a separate issue than Magic the card game, right? Like, if somebody is a complete asshole and they're like, they're sexist, they're a pig, they're terrible, I don't think they should be banned from Magic because it's a separate issue than Magic. There's legal consequences for that. There's all kinds of other consequences from that. But Magic is a card game, and I want as many people playing the card game as possible. So I mean, hopefully that makes the point, right? These are separate issues outside of the card game. And I mean, hopefully we can get over this whole culture of just immediate banning or whatnot. Okay. Watched a video that Travis Wu just put up a little while ago, and it's the one that has his thumbnail is like the guillotine or something, and I think he does Travis is another guy who can be really divisive, but I think he does a very good job of making a point in a reasonable fashion without like pointing fingers too much and having a particular agenda that he's trying to push. It's just an observation of how these little things play out. And I found it very interesting as well, because I had come to kind of the same conclusion that Wizards jumped into this thing, once again, I don't want to say Wizards because it's really like, it's not necessarily the company. I mean, we got to remember that it's the people who are supported. What we got here is people who are supported by Wizards, who they've chosen to be kind of their voices, are like jumping on Twitter and whatnot and calling people out. And I guess by the fact that Wizards has not banned them, but they're banning the other people, is it Wizards again though? It's so tough to talk about this stuff. So anyway, certain people are getting banned from Twitter or subreddits or whatever, and certain people are not. So whoever has, in some way the company is, I guess, involved in that particular way. So I'd like to move the conversation, just one guy who's absolutely nobody, who has like 10 YouTube videos and 2 views or whatever. But we can all hope that this means, whatever. If I don't make this video, it's certainly not going to do anything, so I might as well make it and potentially have it not do anything. I'd like to see the conversation move away from just who's going to get banned and who's not to like, how can we resolve these situations and how can we make them better? How can we have a discussion where we meet on a ground of understanding, even if we're not all going to agree on politics or how we feel about women and men or gender identity and all that. If we can't meet on that, at least we can all just like get back to playing the game, right? And we can talk about it and perhaps change each other's views on some things, right? And if not change, then just agree to disagree and get back to playing Magic. Like, isn't that what this is really about? So, yeah, I think this whole banning thing it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. Like, yeah. As is, the call for bans or whatever. But then on the flip side of that is also, let's see here. Get Revolt. I don't even know if that's hers. I'm gonna assume that's hers. So I'm gonna, for now anyway. Let's see. Oh, this is going to be difficult. I knew it would be, to talk and sort at the same time. But you know what? I'm sure I'll get used to it, and it'll all turn out okay. Let's see, where was I? Let's see, the bannings, or banning talk. Harassment. What are people on the street? Yes, back to the Travis Wu thing, and having the company get involved to moderate is, I think they've discovered is kind of dangerous, because there may have been a bunch of people there was probably a lot of people doing this moderating and stuff that just assumed that the majority of Magic players were going to be on their same page and not have a problem with it. But what they're discovering is that's not the truth, okay? You could even call it the redirection of this last election, okay? People thought that the country was thought a certain way, and it turned out that wasn't necessarily the truth, right? So I think Wizards is discovering this, and I think in the end that is a good thing, that they are making a card game, and we want the most people playing it, and that means that you're gonna have people playing Magic across the table from you that you don't agree with, and that's life. And that's honestly the way it should be, because anyone living in an echo chamber is a problem. Okay, your thoughts, even if you are, I think any ideology eventually is going to run into problems if it's not challenged, or if you kind of look at Travis Wu's video that I referenced, the one with about the guillotine and whatnot, is that any ideology is eventually going to eat itself. No matter how good intentions it is, if everyone starts, it's not if everyone. You'd think if everyone started thinking the same way, that they would suddenly like come to agreement once everyone was gone that they agreed with, but it's just not really how it seems to work, right? Because whoever starts shoving people out, like they start, it starts getting more and more, I almost think it like breeds this craziness in itself, where they're going to get more particular about who's allowed into their in crowd, and then suddenly there's going to be not enough of them left. Anyway, just watch the video. Hopefully you'll get it. So, but the point is that Wizards, whether it's Wizards or these moderators or whatever, there's kind of this thing happening where they're discovering that you can't just go, okay, well, we're going to get rid of all of these people out of Magic the Gathering, and then it's going to right itself, and the world will be happy and all this, right? It's not possible. First off, there's too many of the quote-unquote others, okay, for Magic to survive without them, is what it appears, all right? Because it's apparently more than they assumed. So I mean, there's that in and of itself. But also, I think smart people understand that it's a slippery slope when you start shutting people down if you start taking their free speech away, essentially, okay? It's a slippery slope, and that's why there's a story I heard. I don't have references or anything, so I can't say it's true. Is that there was, years back, there was this neo-Nazi group that self-declared as neo-Nazis, and they wanted to march in a parade, and the town was like, no, we're not going to, you guys are hate speech, we're not going to do this. And then the local Jewish community actually, worked with the ACLU or whatever to get them into that parade, to allow them to do that. So you're like, why would they do that? Oh, that's crazy. It's because those people understood the dangers of shutting down other ideas, whether they're hateful or not, is because once you start doing that, you're living in a vacuum, and you're not thinking about which side you're going to be on. So I think that Jewish community center understood that, like, yeah, we could, these guys, maybe what they're saying is terrible, but we could be on the other side years down the road. And so if suddenly somehow these guys get into power, we don't want to be told that we can't march in the parade because of who we are. And that's what I think a lot of people don't consider. Again, this is just anecdotal evidence story of just what I feel like I've observed. I feel like it wasn't that long ago, maybe like 10, 15, 20 years ago, where people wouldn't publicly come out in support of gay marriage because they were afraid that the majority would not agree, and that it was like a kind of dangerous thing to do. And then about 10 years ago, it turned into the opposite, where it was dangerous to come out and say that you were not in support of gay marriage, right? So just put that together. If you start shutting people down based on just whatever that current political climate is, then you have supported just shutting people down because they have different views than the majority. And think about it. You think you're justified when you do it, right? But just think about history. Think about the flip side. What's going to happen 10 years from now when the majority thinks different and you're on the other side and suddenly you're getting shut down and banned and everything, right? Think about it. So hopefully, if you're self-aware, you can just think about what kind of danger that creates. And that's what I think kind of gets pushed aside sometimes in times like this. So, I think that pretty much sums up the point that I really wanted to get at, okay? But to bring it back around, in order to apply it on, that's the macro level to this whole thing and whatever you want to call this conflict. But on the micro level, when it comes down to like MTG YouTuber content creators and all that, and this thing between Jeremy and whatever, Jeremy's phrasing it as this bigger, wider political thing. But I think a lot of people are. It's not just him. But in the end, the real actual issue there is whether or not anyone has been harassed. And just on a quick kind of observation level, I don't know that it necessarily looks good for Jeremy if somebody like really puts down and insists, looks at the evidence, whether I think there may be a case there, but that's an opinion. I'm not here to push that opinion, okay? If I'm here to push anything on anybody, it's that you get informed yourself and you look at everything that's out there before you start making decisions, okay? And also, for God's sake, don't I can think about more to talk about, okay? Like, this stuff, it's just so ridiculous to me that this sort of thing is now spilling into people's personal lives, okay? That's where it just really gets sick, okay? Is that, everybody, a lot of people involved are like getting, they're getting like death threats in their inbox, or people like calling their jobs to tell them that they should be fired. That's just incredibly wrong. Incredibly wrong. It's just gross, man. It's gross. Like, just because you disagree with somebody, or even if you think they're like a hate monger, like, does Jeremy deserve to die or lose his job? I don't think so. Like, come on. Just for but the flip side goes the other way, because a big part of this issue is that it sounds like the harassment things are more stemming from not so much what Jeremy himself has done, but what the people who see his videos and stuff has done. Is Jeremy responsible for their actions? I don't know. Probably not. Okay, but we live in this world now of no consequences. So that's what breeds this stuff, is that it's so anonymous that thousands, millions of people, okay, not millions, we're probably not dealing with millions here, but thousands of people can then become involved in whoever's the professors or wedges can watch Jeremy's video and then become intimately involved in their personal lives. Like, that's the parts that's sick and disgusting, okay? And I think that's what the professor is trying to say to Jeremy in his latest video, is like, dude, oh, look at that. That's weird. Cardstock quality. Ooh, I mentioned it. I talked about it. By the way, as far as the cardstock quality thing, I actually hadn't personally noticed that many issues with the recent sets. The one that really got to me was Eternal Masters, where the commons and at least the commons, I think it was commons and uncommons. The rares and mythics and foils seemed fine, but the commons came out just like whoop, like that, like straight out of the box. It was just bizarre. And printing was bad on the tokens and stuff. So I thought Eternal Masters was the height of the bad cardstock. But that's an issue for another time. So let's see. Harassment issues, blah 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 blah. Yes, the personal life. So that's where it really gets sick. And I mean, that's the main thing that I need, I think, mostly out of this as a society, that hopefully we can get a curb on, is that just because somebody puts up a dumb YouTube video or says maybe some stuff that's a little out, a little much on YouTube, it doesn't mean that they deserve to have their personal life messed with and interrupted. And that's probably at its heart is what Christine is talking about, Christine Sprankle, which she's saying, it looks to me like she's, saying my life has been a living hell since this point and it's because of Jeremy. So then it's like, oh, she's calling out Jeremy. But it's not Jeremy himself. It's that he created a video and all these people started doing nasty things to her. So who's really at fault there? Probably not Jeremy. I mean, yeah, he started that shit, but I don't think that was his intention, right? Is to get millions of people to harass this girl. But that's probably what caused it. And so they've now jumped into her personal life. So you know who really deserves to be punished? It's those people. But there's thousands of them. So, I mean, maybe if enough of them get caught or tracked down and like put in jail, then that'll put a stop to all this. That may be the best outcome of this, right? But that's what is so sick and ridiculous about this internet culture that we live in, is that the anonymity of it, that there's no consequences. So people start doing incredibly crazy stuff, and that's just sad. It's really sad. So as far as more points, I'm kind of glad that this is happening. Like I said, the silver lining to all this, like, it sucks. It really sucks that it's happening and the way it's happening. But the silver lining to all this is that hopefully we've kind of seen the consequences of how, having the company kind of dictate what people can say who are playing their game and trying to, like, I think it comes down to, it's like there's this line that's been crossed of like who people playing the game, and then like, well, you play my game, so you're representing the game, so you can't say or do certain things. And we've seen how that going that route of trying to police them together is not good. And so a good side of that is that this whole little conflict is very slowly and creeping into Games Workshop stuff, which I also play Warhammer, and I'm a big fan of Warhammer. And so hopefully we, it'll just kind of get shut down and won't start happening there. So I feel like I should make a few things clear that I want everybody to be able to play these games and enjoy these games. And I don't support hate speech and harassment. I definitely don't. And I'm not pushing any ideology or anything. I'm just trying to look at it from a outside perspective of what's happening and what is the best. What are the best answers here? And hopefully something I said hopefully some of the things I said in here just makes sense, right? It really comes down to be informed about what you're doing. Don't stay away from the knee-jerk emotional reactions, okay? And just be a decent human being. And there's no need for you to go out there and start sending harassing emails to people just because, you don't like them or whatnot. Don't stay out of people's personal lives that you don't know. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? For you folks who are sending death threats and calling T-Woo's employer, telling him that he should be fired. Why are you doing these things? Just take a long, hard look at yourself. Is it because there's nothing going on in your life, and so that's what makes you feel like there's something going on? Why are you doing it? And that the companies want to create... Okay, so Magic wants to create a safe environment for people. That is totally cool. That makes a lot of sense. They want women to feel For example, just one thing, they want people. They want. Like, let's not even say women. They want people to feel safe coming to Magic events and not getting harassed. And that's totally fair. But like citing a poll, a Twitter poll, is like not really like, it's not good evidence, and it's also not really a solution to the problem. I mean, maybe they're already doing this kind of thing. Maybe they're already doing what I'm about to mention, and it's under the radar. But if they're concerned about harassment issues in the game, and it's not just against men against women. I mean, in that poll, a lot of men said that they have been harassed, and I've seen that where people are just straight up jerks. I've seen it happen. Like, you walk into a game store and somebody be like, "Oh, well, your deck sucks, and I don't even know why you're playing." It's like, people who just started the game, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who quit because they just run into some asshole when they start playing. Well, the problem there isn't like all men or all white men or all straight men or anything. It's those assholes, right? That's what we need to stop those particular assholes. If they just happen to be white straight men, don't target white straight men. Target assholes. Right? Did I make my point there? Yeah. So, but I think as far as like, Wizards should absolutely be concerned about whether women are being driven out of competitive Magic or just Magic in general because of attitudes and whatnot. They should absolutely be concerned about that. But how do they solve that? Not by like an internet movement with Twitter polls. It's like, send people in. Like, when you're at a tournament, have secret players, okay? People who are just hired by the company, sit there, just like you do with secret shoppers, okay? Maybe they don't have the resources to do this, but I mean, if they're gonna cause some problem, if they're gonna make such a big deal out of this, they should probably find the resources. Have some people who are there, who are just hired to play the game, so that like they can observe actual harassment and be a witness to it and put a stop to it. And then if someone is actually harassed, go to the police. Do people feel like they can't do that? I don't know. Like, there's got to be there's got to be real consequences, and there's got to be real evidence for anything that makes any sense to happen. There has to be real evidence, and there's got to be consequences. I mean, I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And hopefully, I'm sure if somehow this video actually gets viewed by any number of people, I'm sure it's going to get clipped up and people are going to be like, "Oh, this guy's also an asshole. Okay, he said X thing and whatnot." So just be informed. Take everything with a grain of salt. Yeah, man. People. Did I actually do any effective sorting here? I think so. Well, these are, okay, so these are also her cards over here. I guess if I'm going to contribute anything more of note, I need to kind of go back and see what I said. I hope you look at this, as a listener, I hope you can kind of look back at the whole thing and just think about how strange it is, what age we live in, that this is what happens. This is the age that we live in, where you can make maybe you make one video and it's dumb and it's emotional and you say some dumb things, and that people just run with it. And then suddenly it's okay to get involved in your personal life, sending you death threats and telling you that you should be fired from your job. That suddenly that's okay. And I guess the reason I feel defensive, I should go into a little bit. The reason I feel defensive of that sort of situation is that stuff has happened to me, where I've lost jobs because people made stuff up about me, and there was essentially a narrative created that I didn't even know was happening, right? And that's what makes it so sad, is I didn't even know this stuff was going on, like people talking about me behind the scenes, and I'd find out, later on, people just straight up lying about me. And for some reason, the way I acted, or this, it's like someone would hear me say one off-color joke, and they started to assume a lot of things about me. That I was misogynist, or I was whatever, I was sexist, and all this stuff, which is, in my opinion, like, it can only be my opinion that I can just tell you, yeah, I'm none of those things. But obviously, it's just me talking, and me just saying what I think. But it was just weird to me how quickly that was able to get turned against me, and how easy it was for people to believe things that they heard about me as opposed to what was actually true about me, and to take action based on what they heard about me without actually knowing me as a person. And it's happened to me many times. And that's probably a good analogy to what's going on here on both sides of the issue, right? Whether you're Jeremy or the professor or you're Wedge or whatever, that you and me as YouTubers, we don't know any of these people personally. And they know each other through the internet. You know, we don't know how much time they've actually spent together and how well they know each other. But all this drama and all this is happening based on things that, not based on like personal, based on them actually knowing each other, if that makes sense. And that's what this internet environment creates. And I've personally seen that sort of environment spill over into other things I've done. Now, whether that's as a result of this internet culture, I don't know. But I've, I'll just go into it. I used to be a high school coach, and I say used to because I still am a little bit, but I'm kind of backing out of it because there's just so much to deal with these days. I don't know if it's always been like that. I feel like it hasn't always been like that, but all it takes is like one kid or one parent to complain about you, and you can be in some deep, deep stuff. And you may have all these other people who think you're great, but they don't have any reason to run to the principal and say, I mean, where's their motivation to go to the principal and go, oh, you know what? I think this coach is awesome. Hopefully they'll come out and they'll say it. But when you've got two kids in your office one week and they're like going, oh yeah, coach whoever did this thing that I really don't like or made me feel uncomfortable or whatever, then they have to act on that. And they don't necessarily have the time or the motivation to collect actual evidence. You know what I mean? And I've seen it go both ways. But like I'm saying, I've lost jobs over stuff like that. And sometimes it was outright lied. Like there were outright lies about what I had done or whatever. And, I didn't even really have a way to defend myself in a lot of cases because the decision had already been made. And that's just sad. That's really sad. And I don't think any of us really wants a world like that. And that is, that's related to this issue that is related to this Magic the Gathering issue and who's getting banned and whatnot. They're related. It just comes down to don't snap react to stuff. I don't think people should be banned or silenced. The only real way that I think a ban or silencing or anything like that is really appropriate is when someone has been repeatedly warned and does not change, So, like I was saying, there may be some evidence that is what has happened with Jeremy, that he has been repeatedly, warned, and he has not changed. So, but that needs to be investigated, and we'll see where that goes, right? We'll see where that goes. And please, I beg of you, just random people, like, stop getting involved in people's personal lives that you don't know. It's, in different ways, it's affected me in an incredibly terrible way, and I can see that it's affecting these folks on YouTube in a terrible way. And like, let's just not be those people. Like, if you need something else going on in your life, if you need something happening in your life so much that is what you need to do, is you need to go ruin someone else's life, like, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's going on with you, that's what you're motivated to do, and let's fix it, right? And maybe that can happen through the game of Magic, right? maybe you can learn healthy habits and we can rehabilitate unhealthy people through this game. Magic the Gathering. Now starting to feel like maybe I am like T-Woo 2.0 here, because, you know, he was just talking about how I used to have this group that was Magic for Good, and it was all about positivity and stuff, and that it like went a certain way. So, hey, who knows what will happen. Anyway, if you made it this far through the video, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully some sort of positive influence has come out of it, and I've at least sorted this many cards. So, thank you very much. Oh, I should mention, I didn't want to mention it off the top because I wanted to get straight to the business so people would actually watch this video. I got this idea from the Glacial Geek, who's a Warhammer battle report dude, and you know, he has a series called what is it? Thin Coats Deep Thoughts, where he just you know, basically paints and talks, and I thought it was great, and I thought it might be a decent way for me to also get something done while talking at the same time. And so I gotta give shout outs to him, and check out his stuff if you're into Warhammer, or even if you just like good content. So there you go. Thanks for listening.